Ladies and gentlemen, estimate audience, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever you are in the world, and welcome to the second edition of this masterclass, maximizing the ROI of ISO 20022 migration, that has been sponsored by EAT Consulting and ECS Fin, two global companies that are deeply involved in the ISO migration. We arranged, as I said, the second edition, coming from the great experience we had in another region a couple of months ago with the first edition, giving a different flavor of the ISO migration. So trying to understand what there is behind, on top of the new regulation, new standard. And to do this, we have invited today from the Asia Pacific area 3 key managers from a different ecosystem that are involved in the ISO migration with a different hat, let's say, that are happy to share with us today how they are supporting ISO 20022, sharing their thought, their perspective, in order to give you a better vision of what we can do to get strategy advantage on top of the compliance in the migration. I think the best things to do is to introduce the estimate panelists. And we have Zulani, the former head of payment operation at AM Bank Group, a key bank that is deeply involved in the ISO migration plan. Radhika, that is a partner and financial technology leader in EY. And again, as a global consultant, she will share with us how Ernst Young is supporting financial institutions trying to get advantage of this historical implementation. And last but not least, we have Dhruvi, the Chief Information Officer at Halton National Bank. Only the name should ring the bell. So it's a key bank that, of course, involved also in other key working groups. So I think that Dhruvi we share is a bank experience, but also what banks are thinking doing in the plan. So I would like you guys introduce yourself, take 1.5 minutes. And I would like to start with Zulani, then Radhika and Dhruvi. So Zul, over to you, and please introduce yourself to the panelists, to the audience.
Thank you, Dame. My full name is Muhammad Zuhaini Zuakopri, but you can call me Zul. There's a short name. Okay, I have served with Ambank Group as the head of payment operation. Whereas I lead and what I call it a critical initiative to streamline, enhance the efficiency of the bank payment system. So before this, I have worked within the other banks, also in the payment side, also managing the operation and the system as well. My involvement in this what they call ISO 222 is just to what they call it is part of this what they call it regulatory requirement by our bank negara. So that's all, for my side.
Amazing, thank you, Zul. And by the way, I didn't try to call you with your entire name, so I think that you allow kindly to call you Zul. That is great for me. Thank you for sharing. Introduce yourself, Radhika, and over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Radhika Sehgal. I'm partner with Ernst & Young in India. I lead the technology consulting for financial services for EY from India, and I'm ex-Citi. Have been working as EY partner across all financial services in their tech transformation, including a lot of work that we do in payments transformation. We'll be sharing a lot of the experiences as we go through today. Thank you. Back to you, Dom.
Amazing, Radhika. Very excited to hear about EY, what is doing to support financial institution. So as I said before, last but not least, Drew, it's I'm very excited to have you here, considering the dimension of your bank, the way you're involved. So please introduce yourself.
Yes. Thanks, Amrika. Hi, I'm Dhruvi Vaidyapiratne, Dhruvi for short. Been the Chief Information Officer for Hatton National Bank for about 3 years plus. HNB actually is a very old legacy bank in Sri Lanka, 135-year-old history. It's also deemed a systemically important bank as part of Sri Lankan ecosystem. What I can bring to the table is last year, as a part of our RTGS implementation, we went live with ISO 20022, and we are also moving all our systems also to align for the SWIFT deadline, actually, which is in 2025. A lot of work happening on the background, and also not a career bank by profession. Been working in the telco industry at the start, working for FMCGs and in manufacturing before coming into banking. So I have a bit of experience outside the banking field as well. Thank you.
Amazing. And Dhruvi, the same I said at Zul. Thank you for allowing me to call you Dhruvi, because if I call you with the entire name, I think that we spend all the webinar for me to learn how to pronounce the name. And so I think that, we say lady first. So Radhika, if you are okay, I would like to start with you with the first question. Knowing that finally financial institutions are not working anymore on the tactical, tactical strategy plan, but long-term strategy plan. But again, in the long-term strategy plan with the innovation and managing 24/7 liquidity, there is, of course, this strategy project that is the ISO 20022. So how do you think is aligned the ISO 20022 migration with the long-term strategy of the bank? It's not just global competitiveness, I think. And also, if you could share with us some example coming from the way you are supporting financial institutions. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. So banks need to leverage ISO 2022 as an opportunity, not just to be compliant, but they need to leverage it for transforming and aligning their long-term strategy goal with the potential that ISO 2022 brings to the table. So there are multiple dimensions to this. One is when you are standardizing your message formats, it reduces complexity and cost. That helps in operational efficiencies. Example would be HSBC used ISO 2022 migrations to streamline its global payment processing, and they have improved operational efficiencies. The other dimension on this is interoperability. It is interoperability between banks, between payment systems, as well as market infrastructure. That helps you to lead in better collaboration within the financial industry, and it also has potential for partnership that you can leverage for expanding a lot of service offerings. One example I would like to bring in here would be Standard Chartered Bank, which has focused on interoperability and collaborations with fintech partners to offer innovations and a lot of innovative payment solutions. The third dimension that banks and financial services can leverage is in and around risk management. The enhanced data carried in ISO 2022 can improve the bank's ability to detect and prevent fraud. And that will help you in credit and liquidity risk management, and now also provide a lot of financial inclusions, cross-border payments with more robust controls in place. Now there is also one dimension where you can leverage the structure of these rich data format to integrate with emerging technologies such as blockchains, artificial intelligence, machine learnings, as well as predictive analytics. And you can actually provide both institutional clients as well as individual customer very hyper personalized data and do a lot of targeted marketing campaigns. So all of that information insights you can leverage from ISO 2022. One example there would be JP Morgan Chase, who have leveraged enriched data from ISO 2022 to develop these new data-driven products and services that has increased in revenue from value-added services as a detailed payment tracking and advanced analytics for corporate clients. So going back, this is no longer just a compliant tick in the box. This is an area which we are helping a lot of financial services and working with the multitudes to figure out how you can grow your top line, how you can do operational efficiency as well as improve controls, leveraging what ISO 2022 is bringing forward. Back to you, Dom.
Yeah, thank you, Radhika. Honestly, it's amazing what you share with us. And I see more than before, and I think that you confirm with your example, that now financial institutions, you mentioned JP Morgan, but also Standard Chartered Bank, are acting as a partner of their clients. Could be biller, corporates, and public administration. So, like you said, helping their business. So, the problem with the fraud, risk management, liquidity. That is where I believe the new revenue streams are coming from. So this one is a really exciting thinking the bank in this way. Thank you so much, Radhika. Zul, you are coming from Malaysia, and you are responsible a deep expert of this region. But that when we say Malaysia, of course, in a cross-border payment world, we are talking about, global topics. And we heard that for some reason the central bank decided to support and ask banks to anticipate the migration ISO 20022 compared to the worldwide standard that is November 2025 as a SWIFT setup. Can you share with us the reason why the central bank is going to undertake this decision, and of course the impact in the region?
Dome, thank you very much. That was a very, very good question. Okay, as you can see that our central bank did ask us to comply ahead of the SWIFT ISO 222 at that time. The rationale behind this, they want to ensure that we, the Malaysian bank, are able to send and receive ISO 222 MF format before the given deadline by the SWIFT. Okay, as they believe that beyond the November 2025, SWIFT will stop processing and accepting payment in empty format. That is what they call it a risk to Malaysian bank for not what they call it adopting the ISO 222. Yeah, there are two deadlines given for us to comply. Okay, for domestic, we have domestic and cross-border. For domestic is on June 2024. I believe by now all these domestic, what they call it local bank or local foreign bank, already migrate to the ISO 222 for this retas. Yeah, one for the cross-border is on the March 2025. Both are in MF format. However, for domestic payment for retas payment, they are slightly different for original MF format. A customization needed to cater before we can go to settle bank payment host and get processed, because they are two different. Because our bank negara is quite different when accepting or processing a payment. They need to add another layer of information before it get processed. Yeah. So to ensure that we are able to meet both deadlines, they have asked us to submit progress report on monthly basis. Okay, failing to do so, there will be an email reminder over senior role, a love letter by them to our group CEO. That's how serious they are on this ISO 232 implementation. For me, on the other hand, we are very grateful to our central bank for pushing us to complete the SWIFT ISO 222 ahead of the SWIFT deadline, which on November 2025. Back to you, Dome.
Honestly, it's amazing, and I didn't expect this. So finally, I believe that, like you said, that the central bank is helping the community to be ready, and also supporting all the community in this phase. That I think that is the way the central bank should act, and not only as a regulator. So I believe that is great, the experience that you share with us today. Thank you, Zul. And we heard Zul, and then of course Radhika from wearing different hats. And I think that is important, Dhruvi, that you share with us how Alton National Bank, and considering the importance of the business, the entity of the, let's say, the business of the bank, how is facing the migration, thinking about all challenges. And I think that from your position as a CIO, you have a wider vision of the all challenges of the project. So it would be great for all audience today that you could share with us the challenges, but also and mainly how you are facing it, considering the deadline is almost tomorrow.
Sure. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah,
It's been
obviously.
in journey. So like we said, we had to go live for RTGS with ISO 2022 last year. So uh, the actual amount of work that you need to do to prep yourself for this, from your core banking
Mm.
system to treasury to comply is challenging and complex. The good thing is, from Swift side, they actually provided banks with tools that actually allow for message translation. But basically, the MT messaging standard is a very old standard. It's character limited. You can only have that much data in it, in that much information. So basically, the converters, what they do is they strip the rich information that is available in the ISO message, and they just sort of conform it to an empty standard and pass it on. Systems work, life goes on. But the whole idea in having ISO messages, so 20 or 22, is really to give you a lot more information in the message form. So, for instance, the current requirements for AML KYC, there's a lot of additional enrichment in the ISO message that you will not see anywhere in an MT. And from a bank perspective, how we looked at it is, one, yes, we had to comply, so there was no question. We had to bring that on board. Second, we looked at it from a business perspective, what additional information you could actually derive from this. And it's like what people say, data is the new oil. There's a lot more information. You can look at your customer behaviors, what are the patterns, and if you're actually investing now, especially, I don't think anybody out there doesn't invest in ML and AI technologies. I mean, mainly ML, maybe not AI so much here. So then you start gathering information about your customer that you may not have seen earlier through this enrichment of info. That allows us to sort of profile customers in different ways, with the new modern cash management platforms and all. HLB also has gone in for some fairly large cash management projects actually last year as well. And before the customer requests it also, we are able to actually offer customers certain services, and sort of, that gives us a bit of competitive advantage. The information that is carried in ISO is vital. So, I mean, that is really useful for us. So we see it as a positive on that side. Yes, it's a lot of money when you go to budget board procurements to ask for money to do these things. You usually come back feeling like you lost a bone or something like that. But they also look at it very positively and from that aspect as well. So it's been a good journey. There's more to do because bringing other parts of the banking ecosystem onto full native ISO messaging also carries a lot of work. But I think it gets on, and we have support across the board also to do it as well. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it's amazing. To be honest, I mean, I have a little question, and for you, Dhruvi. But I mean, I already know the answer. Could be maybe silly question, but I think that for the audience is important. I know that you are involving your clients in this journey, and just towards in the way you are involving your clients, because you mentioned that of course they are giving benefits to your clients. So how you are involving them? Being sure that you are meeting their expectation, they can get benefits from the migration.
Right. So I mean, if you see the sort of the richness of the messaging, as opposed to an old empty message, you have a lot of sender recipient information, classifications, types. So you're also able to reflect a lot of this information. For instance, customers who are empty message would have little relevance to this, but funneling that message into your cash management proposition, which is really your integration with your corporate clients, allows them visibility also of their payments, and it gives them more information on the front side. So that's the positive response we've got from that side. So basically they also see a better picture of their whole payments ecosystem as opposed to what was being earlier, which is like a very short text description of what the payment was, and send the recipient and that type of thing as per the standard MT. So there are benefits there, but of course, I mean, maybe some of the customers are still not fully engaged with it, but we see the larger guys actually seeing the benefits of it. So
Yeah.
I just add one more thing also. I mean, Sri Lanka some years ago was in this international grey list also on this transactional thing, and with a lot of difficulty they came out of the grey list and back in the good books of the international payment channel. So the type of AML information that is requested is now extensive. So one thing that this actually also assists us is we funnel a lot of this information into our AML systems, so that we can always be like one step ahead. Otherwise it's very sort of responsive or like post-mortem type of. So then we can always keep this going, and otherwise there's a lot of compliance things. We work with the central bank very closely, and also we have to sort of make sure that we also ahead of the game basically in order to ensure that Sri Lanka doesn't fall back into the grey list also. So I mean, these are things that actually are beneficial to us and as an industry and as a country also as a whole. I hope I didn't deviate from your topic too much.
No, it's fine. Wow. I mean, I thought it was a silly question, but I didn't know there were so much effort on the bank side to support clients. So well done, guys. And Radhika, I'd like to come back to you and changing slightly the subject, but still very much involved in the ISO migration. So we know that there is the G20 directive in in matter of cross-border payments, and the adoption at the global level of the offer or ISO 20022 for cross-border payments. So we are talking about interoperability. And we know that, thinking about what Zul shared with us before in terms of timeline and coexistency of different standard, different format during the transition period, that we know is a jungle because we have been there before with other process, but this time we are talking about ISO 20022 and the huge vast of data that all of us needed to deal with. So, and I know that EY is deeply involved here. So take your time, but I would like that you could share with us a picture to make the audience less afraid. I mean, of course, knowing that people like you are there with them, knowing exactly what is happening and what needs to be done. So if you can share with us the experience, it would be lovely. Thank you.
No, absolutely, and a very good question, Domenico.
Yeah.
If we have to look at the entire migration, let us look at what are the different challenges. And yes, there are challenges, and it's important for us to understand the challenge and then be ready to mitigate those challenges. So if I look at top challenges, one is integration with respect to the legacy systems itself. Now, banks have complex legacy system to say the least, and it is not readily compatible with ISO 2022. In fact, multiple integrations require significant modification on their complete core of a bank, as well as a complete overhaul. It can be costly, it can be time consuming, but the thing that various financial services are leveraging is to utilize this as an opportunity to modernize and move forward, including adopting open banking and moving on to cloud and getting onto the microservices architecture. In fact, one of the statistics says that 70% of financial institutes cited that legacy system and integration with it is the primary challenge for ISO 2022 migration. The other big issue is on data quality and enrichment. Now, ISO 2022 really requires high quality enriched data to be able to fully leverage all the benefits that we all spoke about, all of what we spoke about, giving hyper-personalized data analytics to the clients, but that needs the data itself to be of a high quality, and hence data cleansing and enrichment process to ensure data accuracy and completeness. That's the second challenge. And 60% of migration issues stem actually from a poor data quality. The third issue, if you ask me, is compliance and regulatory requirements. And the challenge is the fact that different countries, different geographies bring different local and international regulations and guidelines. So how do you make sure that if you are a global bank, global financial services, you are integrating with ISO 2022, at the same time you are ensuring that all compliances are met? Obviously, resource allocation, cost management is an issue, but that's an issue with respect to anything which requires big migrations and integrations. Now, another area where there is a challenge is interoperability with other institutions. So while we said that it will open up areas for collaboration. How do you ensure that interoperability standards are maintained? There are unified view in which how different institutes, different financial services on cross-border as well as other areas collaborate with each other, and that's another area of issue. But having said all these issues, and thanks that there are issues that keeps us consultants going and helping financial services in this entire and important migration strategy. There are few pillars that we need to work on. One is very important, is doing the right assessment and planning, doing a comprehensive assessment of current systems, of current processes, and have a very robust migration plan, clear timelines, clear milestones, clear resource allocations, and tracking it to the T. That's one of the important elements to ensure a seamless migration. Second would be do this in a very, very agile fashion. It has to be incremental, agile. It cannot happen in a big bang approach. It has to be done in a way that we are minimizing disruption, and hence start with low risk areas. We always guide that pilot projects have to be picked up. You have to test the waters and then refine the migration strategy and have the right agile ways of working to gradually expand into more critical systems. Third, since we spoke about data and data issue, data management strategy is a very important element. We are working right now with various financial services on their data quality improvement initiatives. Ensure clean, accurate, as well as enriched data that will help you in robust data governance frameworks, as well as to manage consistency within organization. That will not just help you in this ISO migration, but also help you provide required details to regulators, as well as on a long run enhance your entire go-to-market strategy. Technology and infrastructure upgrades, my bread and butter, modernizing legacy systems, integrating new technologies that supports ISO 2022, ensuring scalability and flexibility in IT infrastructure, looking at opportunities for complete modernization, what you can do to move to microservices, how can you move it to make it move to cloud, how can you make it more scalable and future ready, and create technology as well as infrastructure upgrades is an important element in your strategy. Staff needs to be trained. Change management, as much as I talk about, will be an important element for ensuring that you're providing that governance. And not last but not the least, when I spoke about interoperability, it is important that we have well-defined collaborations and industry engagements so that different financial services institutions are coming together to address common challenges and develop standardized solution, especially when it comes to cross-border payments, ensuring that you are also doing justice to regulatory needs. So these are some of the key elements. If we are able to take care, we have helped in various geographies, a lot of successful implementation, not just as I was talking earlier in terms of doing a tick in the box, but also to help in improving your top line as well as doing your operational saves and efficiency improvement and giving hyper-personalized analytics to your clients.
It's amazing. Looks like you and your team have something that is keeping you busy.
Oh, a lot of it. Nothing to complain, Domenico.
Yeah, no, amazing. And thank you so much for sharing this information. It's nice to see that, important consultancy companies are working next to the bank, like you said, to tick all flags, be sure that finally will be a success. And this is very important. And thank you again, Radhika. And
thank you.
Zul, was interesting listening to you when we are talking about what is happening in Malaysia after the decision of the central bank to anticipate the go live. And I mean, coming from what I said before related to the G20 directive on cross-border payments, finally, every migration now, you mentioned before, is going to be domestic and cross-border at the same time. So the question that is coming to my mind is, how do you cope with the two strategic initiatives at the same time? I'd like to say good luck, but I think that for the audience it's better to understand how you cope, because I know that there is a solution and you're working hard on this. So over to you, Zur. Happy to listen to you.
Thank you for your tricky questions. No. We are not going to do what you call two projects at one time. We're going to prioritize. So I mean, let's say for us, the closer deadline is rentas MX 222. Okay, so it means the deadline is somewhere June 2024. Okay, so as you know that the technology guys and operation guys are not what they call it project driven. See, so I mean we have very limited resources. When we prioritize our effort, we set a committee consist of IT, business partner, with our own bank and payment operation team. Each team have a different roles, but the end game are the same, delivering ISO 222 to meet our central bank deadline. That is the main the important thing, deliver to Bank Negara as per our promise. For us, moving into MX message format from NT format, a bit of challenges, as all our front office system and core banking are still doing payment processing based on NT message template. To change from NT to MX message and all system level requires huge sum of investment. Due to the tight deadline given by our central bank for both domestic and cross-border, our top management have agreed to subscribe a translator from NT to MX for outgoing and MX to NT for incoming, for both for domestic or cross-border payment. Then this translator only acts as a temporary solution. It should end by, let's say, if you adopting what they call it as translator, normally the lifespan of the translation is only 5 years. So I mean, we need to what they call it to explore how to make the front office or the core banking can adapt to the ISO 222 and MX format. Okay. Dom, for me, the ISO implementation did give us some benefit for us. Yeah, number one is a payment harmonization within the payment system industry. Number two is enrich of more payment information, as it can cater up to 140 characters compared to existing MT format, which only up to 35 characters. More data. And lastly is data mining for our own reporting or regulatory reporting. Back to you, Dom.
Honestly, it's amazing listening to you and the way you are dealing with this process. But the good news is that finally you are dealing very well with the domestic and cross-border implementation. So there is a plan. This is the most important thing. I can tell you, as I'm involved at the global level, supporting institution in the migration, I agree that let's say 58% of the financial institutions are trying to, they have a plan to migrate and keep the project domestic and cross-border at the same level. But keeping in mind all Radhika shared with us so far, so it means and all the challenges that of course there are coming from the duality, coexistence of the different format, the legacy system that is not ready to deal with a huge bus of data. And by the way, before moving to Dhruvi, I see that there are interesting questions in the chat that so we can see together after Dhruvi. And Dhruvi, I have a question for you. And so we see at the global level that transaction fees are becoming cheaper sometimes, like is happening in Europe. The European Central Bank, the European Payment Council is saying transactions should be free. So of course there is an issue for financial institutions. So identify new revenue streams. And of course on the other side, we know that big bus of data like ISO 20022 require efficiency in terms of a manual intervention, tracking system, shorting the chain, all or after involved. And my question based on this is, we know that Alton National Bank and mainly you are involved in a user group, but is also your personal experience in the bank that you are supporting. Can you share with us how you are dealing with this? So how you are preserving and guarantee efficiency, according to what I said, but also identify new revenue streams. That is, I think, what the audience wanted to hear from this masterclass. So over to you, Dhruvi.
So you're right. The demand is there always to reduce transaction costs. However, as Radhika rightly put it, there are multiple systems that this touches. These are, upgrading these systems are extremely costly. Who's going to pay for it at the end of the thing? Because, the bank is also responsible to its shareholders. But one approach that, we've also been following, and which seems to be having a lot of traction in the market is, also, your core banking and your system developers also have seen an opportunity here because they see an opportunity as a new revenue stream, and also because, for instance, a bank would be very dependent on different connectors to MT messaging. It could be your treasury, it could be your core banking. And if you were actually going to do modifications for all of these systems, it would be extremely complex, time consuming, and costly, and require a lot of resources, even human resources. So one concept that a lot of even the core banking developers and providers are doing is they create something called central messaging hubs. So basically what you do is your interface with your core banking or your treasury, you move it to this central messaging hub, and you actually allow the central messaging hub is completely ISO 20022 compliant. You can connect it up using MT as the downstream, so that there's no modification required from, let's say, your core banking or your treasury, until those folk are able to take ISO natively, bring all your ISO messaging into the central hub, do all the processing there, and then so the core banking life goes on there. You're not under the gun really to you're not on a quick timeline. I think like what Zul said, when you have a central bank or the regulator deadline to cope with, it's no joke, because our corporate management and the CEO is constantly on you saying, are you ready, are we not going to have problems? So one way of actually taking this data out and using it for your analytics purposes is actually interfacing through the hub. That reduces the complexity of having to go to your main core banking and try to do API integration with that to extract your data out. Your treasury system, which is something that is heavily regulated and very time critical, so you don't want anything interfering with that and causing additional delay. So one of the approaches that we have done is we're looking at the hub concept, which is a very pragmatic approach. Then that gives you breathing space for the other systems to come ready on time. And it also, you can do the hub, we can also do ISO in, ISO out, or ISO in, MT out. So then that way you can bring your systems that come on board with ISO. When they convert from MT to ISO, it won't create that pressure on you, because regulatorily you'll be compliant. Your system will also be given the breathing space to be, we are banks, so we have to do extensive testing. You can't just release anything into production. We can't be under that type of pressure. And there are cost impacts as well. So because of that, it gives you the breathing space to take a proper migration path and then bring those systems up to speed when they're ready. Also, the additional benefits I mentioned was that you can feed a good amount of data out into your analytics, and you can use your different tools and sort of your own dashboards and scorecarding to really identify and sometimes you monetize that data as well, because there are opportunities in that way. So this is new revenue stream there, which is trying to offset the pressure of the reduction in transaction costs. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it's great. The good news is that, according to what you just shared, finally financial institutions understand they needed to reduce the cost. And I saw a huge back office. They're really dealing with manual intervention trying to create a reconciliation, but is why today cross-border payments is still around $40 per transaction. So of course, all you said is a very good news, because it's going to, on the client side, giving more efficiency in the service that receives from the bank, but on the bank side as well. So there is a lot of room to create new revenue streams. That is what the management wanted to hear when there are such big investments that, as I think is clear now, is not just a regulatory intervention, but is an opportunity for financial institutions. And while I was enjoying listening to you, I was giving a look at the chat, and so many questions are coming. I mean, if going just in order, there is the first one that I think that we need almost a week to answer the question. Basically, why Swift implement MT to MX ISO 20022? I mean, I don't know if someone wanted to take this question. Otherwise, I mean, as I said at the beginning, I will commit to answer offline. But I don't know if you're interested in sharing some thought about the reason why Swift. That is not only Swift. I mean, is a general decision, a migration from MT to ISO. I don't know if some of you wanted to take this question. Otherwise, we can move to the next one.
Can I just put two comments there? I think MT is a messaging format that was actually, I think, derived in the, if I'm not mistaken, the 70s and 80s, when communication channels were very expensive. I think those of us who grew up in the old, I mean, okay, we were probably very small at the time, but you know, when we started, I actually had the privilege of working in Sri Lanka's first internet service provider. So when we started, 2,400 or 2.4 kilobits per second connections were expensive in 1994. So, you know, because of that, your message lengths also were dependent on your communication channels, because, you know, at the time for a bank even to implement like an internet, or at the time it was on direct MPLS connectivity, was expensive, and bandwidth was expensive. So the purpose at the time was to keep the messages short and as concise as possible. And you know, but also containing the most critical information given the communication channels of the time. So now you're in the gigabit, megabit era. You don't have that type of constraint anymore, and most messaging channels would now go on VPN channels or whatever. You would not need very expensive IPLC circuits and all. So therefore, you actually have the luxury of the bandwidth to give a lot more enrichment, which will help you on the longer term. I hope that sort of made sense. You know, I mean, it's a technology thing right now. I would put it that way. Thanks.
Yeah, it's amazing, and thank you so much for taking this question, Radhika. Even though I know that I shouldn't, to answer a question that I really like: how long does a bank generally take to implement a payment hub from scratch?
So that's a tricky
It's a question for you, Radhika. So sorry.
That's a tricky question, considering that we just discussed that the timeline will depend upon a lot of factors, including how legacy your cores are, how legacy your various platforms are, what kind of top to bottom you have a support, how robust is your cash flows to support this migration. So but most of the financial services, this is done very, very agile, and it's a multi-year program and strategy. It's not just about being compliant, which many have already got compliant, but it is also about what all I spoke about in terms of leveraging the potential for a future innovation growth, as well as increasing your top line and operational efficiency. If you have to do it right and leverage all of that, it's certainly a multi-year program. Now, multi-year can be 2 years versus 5 years, depending upon how robust your internal systems, processes are, as well as whether you have a buy-in top-down or not.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, sorry for addressing the question to you, but I believe that EY knows exactly how difficult it is to identify and the implementation plan. But I thank you so much for taking this question to share your thought, and I totally agree. That is great. I mean, I don't know if I mean there are literally, I'm reading here in the Zul, there are so many questions. If there is something that you are interested in answering, but I mean there are many questions, for instance, on migration that of course is going to foster innovation, like we already shared with Dhruvi. But I'd like to know, for instance, in your region, if there is a link between the migration and the integration with open banking, real-time payments, cross-border transaction. So you already mentioned something on this field, but if you can give us a bit more about the picture of the services on top of the integration. So the gentleman on the lady that wrote this question is asking for advanced service like open banking, real-time payments, cross-border payment transaction. Something, Zul, that you would like to share with us that is happening in Malaysia?
Okay, in Malaysia, for this domestic payment, we divided into what we call into three. One is IBG, there is a file base. Another one is a real-time payment, is a rentas. Another one is do it now. Do it now is something like a real-time. We call it do it now, RPP, real-time payment processing. So it means in Malaysia we did do the segregation. For the SWIFT, for the cross-border is still file base. For this do it now, we are using API. So I mean there is the differentiate, the difference between each products. By each product also managed by different party. For example, let's say for the rentas is managed by this Benegara. Then for the Swiss is a free flow, and for this IBG or do it now or FBX we call it is managed by Benet. So a different entity. So bank are reporting to these two different entities to ensure that the payment methods are what they call it taken.
Yeah. Thank you. And Zul, sorry because I addressed this question. Of course, I mean, without asking you if you want to take, but I know that you knew the answer. I mean, we have time for one last question, and I promise I'm not going to address it to one in particular, but who want to answer. But I saw that scrolling the chat, there are many questions based on how bank ensure data integrity, consistency, protecting clients, something that is happening here in the UK. I forgot to say in the introduction that I'm based in London, is increasing real-time payments, and the transformation is increasing fraud, and I think that some of you mentioned today. I saw several questions based on this. So optimizing data quality, but first of all guaranteeing the privacy of the client. Do you feel you want to take this question? By the way,
can I add some?
Yeah,
I can add some insights to it. How do you leverage ISO to give the required information which can help and enable transactions, as well as some insights which are important without compromising on PII is an important strategy when you're designing the entire framework. So I don't think that, in fact, there's one question there. If you have a more enriched data that can compromise on privacy, answer is no. Getting the data to get insights can be done even without compromising on PII. It also has a lot of ethical standards to be built in. What you're leveraging the data for, how you are going to be storing the data, how you are going to be transmitting the data, and ensuring that there is nothing which is PII specific, which is anyway auditable. And some of these have very strong guidelines and regulatory compliances. So it is not just good to have, it is a mandatory, and there would be internal as well as external audits in and around these in various geographies. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, you did really well, also giving the right perspective. And again, I saw a lot of questions based on data. And as I said at the beginning, so thank you, Radhika. And as I said at the beginning, I will take the commitment to answer all other questions because I see there are a lot. And so it's a very good it means that thanks to you panelists, the audience is really interested in what you are saying today and what they are sharing with us. We are approaching the end of the webinar, and I would like one literally final thought from each of you that could be a sort of takeaway for the audience today. Literally 2 words on something that I as an audience, as a participant, I close this webinar and I say, but I have something like food for thought. So I literally 30 seconds each of you, maybe starting from Zul, if you feel literally a statement for the audience based on this masterclass and the ISO migration.
Okay, for me, my last word lah. I think please adopt to this what I call ISO 222. Mean what I call it, it should be kind of what I call it in a better feel compared to this MT. Because MT are not so structured compared to this and kata ISO 202 for 2022 is more structured. Whereas you can get more information there because it's more have more lines, more character, more information there. That is my thought.
That is very, very insightful, and thank you so much because it's very important. And Dhruvi, last thought from you.
Yeah, so can I just share one thing? At the start of the project, when people put it on the table, when we had a discussion, it looks a daunting task. You have multiple systems to migrate to, depending on whatever the patch level or the version level of each system. There are multiple complexities. How much it's going to cost to upgrade this number of systems in this amount of time? But once again, the good news is we are not alone in that. You just look out there and see what other people have done. Your consultants will really give you guidance, which is what we also got. I mean, we had some specialized consultants as well for these activities. And you try to figure out what the best solution works like if it's your requirement. And how you sometimes you might be buying a little bit more time until, for instance, if your core banking is not at the latest revision, there's no way you're going to be able to do a core banking upgrade to support ISO. So then there are different workarounds. So there are tools out there. There are things like I said, these messaging hubs out there that will help you, and also leverage what ISO brings to you, while also keeping your systems compliant and complying with the regulators. So I think you have to, as a CIO, I have to balance all aspects. So those are the challenges, but then the solutions are also out there as well. Thanks. Yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you, Dhruvi. I really like what you said. And finally, we have Radhika, that today it's been very nice hear from your experience and the EY experience. Your last thought and that you wanted to share with the audience.
So I would like to share one more AHA statistic, especially around data-driven innovations, considering we have so many questions around data. Yes. So one of the example of data-driven innovation is Bank of America. They utilized ISO 2022 data to enhance their fraud detection system, and that has reduced their fraud incidents by 20% and have saved them potentially multi-million dollars. So going back to the point, how you're leveraging the data, how you're leveraging the technology, it's all up to that. So while questions were on, does that expose you too much? Now, there is example of a financial services which have leveraged the potential in terms of actually reducing fraud and on fraud detection. So I'll leave you with that thought in mind.
That is amazing, because I wasn't aware. So finally realizing that it is a masterclass, I am the first one that learned a lot. And what the Bank of America is doing, reducing 20% is a big achievement. And that's great. Thank you so much. So dear ladies and gentlemen, so audience, we are approaching really the end of this masterclass. I hope that you enjoy it, and of course there are many questions that we didn't answer, but like Radhika said, most of them are based on data risk, because in the end it's always in this way. New standards bring new risks, so we needed to deal with. We've been able to deal with. And I would like to thanks again our sponsor. So Yeti Consulting specialize in test and training with the engine artificial intelligence solution that we have now. And we heard from Dhruvi that one important thing to be successful today is the intensive testing. So it's something where Yeti is supporting the project. And the ECS Fin, I saw several questions on how fintech today are supporting financial institutions, and so it would be interesting to understand more how ECS with the product that is not a payment hub itself like a black box, but more than this can offer in a partnership with Yeti. You have all information you have to contact both companies, so ECS Yeti. If not, you can contact me and I will be more than happy to introduce to the right people. I wish all of you a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening. I think that we are talking about Pacific area, so it's evening for you and early morning for me. And I hope that we will see soon again. And a special thank you to Radhika, Zul, and Dhruvi for finding the time to share your experience. And as I said, it's been a lesson for me first. So thank you so much. And I wish you a nice time and keep well. Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.